mother of these dogs, we put her to sleep about 4 days after these things started appearing on her.
I can even think of one more that you haven't mentioned, and that's the obscuring of troop movements or the movements of nuclear weapons around on the ground.
Exactly, and that might tie, some of these are somewhat generalized, and on my side that ties somewhat into the weather modification, because if you look at the agenda of the Air Force in particular, there is a stated agenda of, quote, owning the weather in 2025, and it's very clearly stated that the desires and benefits of controlling the weather have numerous advantages for military applications.
If they were controlling the weather to our benefit, it doesn't seem like we would have quite as many forest fires going across the West right at this time that we're filming this.
It's sort of a unique phenomenon that's going on right now, and what is also interesting to sort of extend on the meteorological discussion earlier is that there is a case also that is developing that indicates that moisture is actually being drawn out of the sky from this material, that the rainfall patterns are being altered in some way, and you have to ask yourself, if you have an environment of 30% humidity and you have what appears to be a cloud forming, either in part or in total water vapor, if one could allow for the possibility of a foreign material or aerosol, then that moisture is being coalesced in some form. However, rain is essentially non-existent. If you look at the rainfall statistics, you find the rainfall is essentially non-existent. So where is that moisture going? And there's a case that can be made. It also ties into the discussion earlier on aerosols and salts along the ocean. But there's a case that can be made that this material that's being emitted could indeed be absorbing the moisture and being redirected or altered for such purposes.
Disregarding the potential economic benefits of converting to clean energy, Lawrence, in 1974, Livermore calculated that cutting back fossil fuel burning 20% to 1990 levels would cost the U.S. economy $100 billion a year. But other calculations showed that using 700 Air Force tankers and possibly other aircraft to spray a protective sunscreen overhead could deflect 1% of the sun's energy, enough to neutralize global warming. The annual cost of this aerial spray program? Only $1 billion. No one at Dr. Teller's office knows if this proposed program is being carried out today. But the technology exists. In 1974, the U.S. Navy patented a contrail generation apparatus to spray sunlight scattering powders from jets. And in 1991, a patent for stratospheric Welsbach seating for reduction of global warming was filed by the Hughes Aircraft Company. Besides reflecting incoming sunlight, Welsbach materials convert heat trapped by greenhouse gases near the surface of the Earth into far infrared wavelengths that radiate out into space. The Hughes patent suggests that these very tiny metal flakes could be, quote, added to the fuel of jet airliners so that the particles would be emitted from the jet engine exhaust while the airliner was at its cruising altitude. A former engineer for Alcoa Aluminum says that aluminum particles as fine as talcum powder will not harm jet engines. He added was that the aluminum exhaust called for in the Sky Shield patent would appear as a pure white plume in the sky. Linked with Alzheimer's and osteoporosis, aluminum is a nervous system toxin that can cause many of the symptoms observed after chemtrail exposure. Evidence of aluminum in chemtrails was found in the summer of 1999 after 550 citizens of Espanola, Ontario, brought a petition before the Canadian Parliament to stop spraying by U.S. tanker planes that appeared to be making many residents sick. At a public meeting on chemtrails, the Ontario Ministry of Environment refused to release their air quality readings, but independent laboratory tests of rainwater samples taken after heavy aerial spraying found levels of aluminum particulates 7 times above permissible safe levels. Other instruments later measured a dramatic drop in solar radiation below these artificial overcasts. But clouds also act as a planetary thermostat, averaging day and nighttime temperatures to make this planet habitable. NASA scientists say that even a small change in this delicate cloud balance can, quote, eliminate global warming or greatly enhance it. Ken Caldera, a physicist with Teller's climate modeling group at the Lawrence Livermore Labs, warned a conference of geophysicists that spraying chemicals to form a solar sunscreen could destroy the ozone layer and trigger other devastating consequences. Whatever chemtrails are meant to accomplish, the weather is getting worse. 1999 was the hottest ever recorded in the United States. Winds that hit Europe on the eve of the millennium knocked down 400 million trees, shut down 2 nuclear power plants, killed hundreds of people, and stranded millions more without lights or power from the Netherlands to Naples. For the first time, waterspouts were seen off Vancouver, Canada, and explosive jet stream winds touched down across the United States. Falling temperatures, strong winds, and rain often follow chemtrails, along with acute ailments among people and animals on the ground.
Let me get over to Dave. Dave, didn't mean to ignore you.
No problem.
How did you get involved in this investigation?
Well, in the winter of January of '99, I became ill with persistent flu symptoms, which were unusual for me. I'm healthy, I'm an athlete, and I don't get sick like that. But I did have recurring flu, which threw me into a state of confusion. I didn't understand why this was happening. Later that spring, I noticed persistent sore throat symptoms, which lasted actually 2.5 months. Again, threw me for a loop. As I started investigating, I heard rumors of these contrails that hang in the sky through various sources, and did some research, and what I found was there were some people that were talking about this and exposing it. Will Thomas was one. I had the opportunity to come down to Santa Fe that summer to see him speak, where I had the opportunity to meet with Clifford at that time, and from that point on, it's just I've been drawn into it.
Well, let's talk about this illness. I get reports from all over the country that during or shortly after the spraying, and I guess we might as well call it that, there have been tremendous cases, an increase in flu or a flu-like illness. Have you checked with the CDC? Have you done any research with the Center for Disease Control?
Yeah, I've looked at the statistics. They're posted on their website, and they do seem to correlate with what people are experiencing, or say what's happening in our skies. There seems to be, in the wake of that, these outbreaks of flu and sinus problems, upper respiratory ailments that people are experiencing.
There is an 800% increase in asthma, according to in the ghettos, in some of the cities now. They're calling it the ghetto illness. There's never been that high incident of asthma, even when the skies were much more polluted than they are now. Has there been any research done with doctors over this increase? Have you talked with any of them?
I have not. Just alternative medicine people have reported to me locally in Aspen, where I live, that people are experiencing the same thing which I had, which is recurrent symptoms, recurrent flu, gastrointestinal pain, runs the gamut, and this upper respiratory problem, this sinus infections are running wild also. As far as medical doctors know, they tend to be to laugh this thing off a little bit. this idea that we're being sprayed.
And yet on CNN, there's been no